Let's talk about what you've done so far in VR. You guys have a lot of VR aspirations, and we can talk about where that's going. But so far, just to kind of level set, you guys were, I think, the first ever live sporting event in VR with the home opener against the Pelicans and the ring ceremony. Tell us about that so far. And we have a few kind of screenshots about kind of what it looks like in general.
So when we won the championship last year, we thought it would be an amazing opportunity. We're fairly invested in exploring virtual reality. And we're lucky because we belong to an association, the NBA, that has a commissioner that's very pro experimentation in these sorts of things. I mean, if you think about it, 99% of the fans in the NBA worldwide will never be able to go to a game in an arena, right? Either they don't live near one, they can't afford one, whatever, they don't want to for whatever reason. And then 99.9% will never go to an arena and sit at the court, right? So clearly, and besides that, there's a lot of other reasons, but the commissioner is seeing this as an amazing opportunity, right, to reach a lot of fans. And we have the opportunity because of, kind of our mentality and primarily our owners that give us the latitude to do that, to test a lot of things. Our fans, how many people have been to a game at Oracle? All right, wow, that's pretty good. But no one has put on a shirt. That's too bad, because I might have had something special for someone. No, don't do it now. It's too late. See, at the arena, we can shame you into it by using the Jumbotron, but here we didn't have that. So when this company NextVR, who one of our owners is invested in as well, Peter Guber, and we could talk about that relationship as well, but and the NBA came to us and said, look, we want you to test this out. And we had already done a secret test where we actually streamed the game live to one room at Oracle where we actually tried it. And it was pretty cool. And it looked amazing. Like we actually had the game playing on the screen next to it from traditional broadcasts, and then we had us try it in VR with the headsets. And so we knew that this was something that we could actually roll out and try. So what we did is we picked our opening night Pelicans with the ring ceremony, the raising of the banner, because we thought that would be an incredible experience, which is still one of the most important things to us. Like, we're not just gonna play around just to play around, right? Whatever it is. Even when we tried Google Glass, we didn't just put it on a player, we actually created an app so that our fans could try it. We invited our fans in up to the certain area, and they could put on Google Glass and they could experience that augmented experience. Same thing with VR. So we wanted it to be something that that would be an amazing experience. This was before the commercial release of the Samsung VR gear, so we knew that also the audience was open to it not being perfect. And we did it, and it was, it was, as our owner says, it's not the end, it's not the beginning, it's the beginning of the beginning for us on this. And in this space, ecosystem is messy and it's complicated, and when you have media rights, and which we'll talk about maybe later, media rights and other things that you have to struggle with and massage a little, it gets challenging, but we were able to do that. We put a bunch of cameras up there, and we captured the content and we streamed it, and we kind of pulled some radio, our radio telecast in as the sound, which wasn't ideal, but we did, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Now let's talk about how it'll evolve from that. You mentioned the sound from radio, and the actual fan experience. To characterize that, it was a few different camera angles, but the primary one was at mid-court, right. 180-degree viewing angle, stereoscopic, just kind of like you see here.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it live, but I've seen in a cardboard setting what it looked like as a replay. Very cool, and it felt very genuine because you feel like you're at the game. You're not hearing commentators like on TV. You're not seeing graphics,
yeah.
And all that stuff. But what's the future vision for where this actual kind of fan experience could go in terms of kind of bells and whistles and more camera angles, or what's your vision there?
Well, so I think we're always trying to move. If you think of like a grid of of experience. There's active experience and passive experience on the x-axis, and the y-axis is maybe absorptive experience, where the experience goes into you, and on the other end is immersive experience, where you go in to the experience, right? So most entertainment is in the upper left. If you go see a movie, for the most part, it's passive, and you're experiencing the content. We always strive to be in the lower right, and we're so far from always being there, but that's kind of where we want. So when we had the experience here, it was incredibly immersive, but there was still you were still primarily a participant in that experience. So you were watching from the angle that was presented, which, as Mike said, was primarily which is an awesome place to be if you've never seen it. I mean, you did feel like you were there. We did cut in some shots from behind the basket, which is what everyone thought was cool, because it's not like anything you've ever experienced before, because no one hangs out above the basket during the game. But I think where we're going to go, and what we're going to look at, is to remember, it's not like a normal telecast, right? Where you have a producer that's saying, cut here, cut there, go to that, go to this, in the dedicated frame space. It's really you just being there. Now in the future, we will have things like unique sound elements. We will have different camera angles. We'll have the potential of augmenting the virtual reality. So when you're watching in the headset, you can have augmented information around the players. This was just 180. Because there wasn't really much to show behind, but you could certainly use that space to do a bunch of other things. As we start to get to the point where it's more personalized and customized, things could be incredibly relevant to you. We could look at ways that it wouldn't be such an isolated experience, where you might be able to communicate, or at least know of other fans that are around that you can communicate with. So I think that there's a whole lot of plays. Now, Warriors, we don't make, we're not a technology manufacturer or any of that, so we are just always looking for what is happening out there. How can we try things? How can we test things? Because we have the opportunity to do that, and then if it works, then we'll think about rolling it out into our new arena.
So what will be kind of the coexistence of this new experience and the previous kind of 2D broadcast experience? They'll come together, they're not, this isn't threatening to broadcast. It seems like it augments it in a lot of ways. So what's your view on how it kind of adds to the mix?
Well, I think the interesting thing with the space right now is that we're lucky, because both Turner, which is a broadcasting company that we work with, and Comcast have both invested in this technology. So it clears a lot of issues. So, I mean, if we just said, look, and again, Mike's right, it's not about cannibalization. It's just about, to some degree, what I call kind of peeing on your fire hydrant. Like, that's our space, right? And right now, it's very cooperative, right? They bring what they're expert in. We bring the fan experience. The NBA brings things that they could bring in terms of what happens in the association, and we all work together. It'll be really interesting to see how this continues to develop. We're not really sure exactly whether these different threads, these streams, will be complementary or coexisting alongside. I can tell you that if you look at the NBA right now, we have something called League Pass, which is our ability, I don't know if anyone has League Pass, but it's the ability to watch a game streamed to you. There's a very natural extension, and we can talk about even extensions past that, but natural extension where VR can sit and coexist, but be a separate stream to itself. So you could say, well, I want regular League Pass, or I want VR League Pass. And around the world, I want international VR Pass. So that means in China or the Philippines, which we have a huge fan base in China, Philippines, you could actually feel like, subscribe to this and feel like you are actually at the game in VR. Meanwhile, your friend or your buddy could get the same thing, but through a webcast.
Now, with respect to them coexisting, I'm now remembering there was a kind of funny and symbolic moment during this experience where you look to your right and the camera guy is sitting at his normal perch,
Yeah.
you're looking at each other, but not really, but in this kind of weird symbolic moment of kind of the old meets the new, but they're
Yeah.
coexisting.
Yeah, and you know, that's exactly what it would look like if you were sitting there. It just so happens that you are actually getting
Yeah.
a more immersive
Yeah.
experience through this headset than he would be delivering.
Now, in terms of also the business case and the adoptiveness, not adaptiveness, or I guess it's both, of the broadcasters and the Turners of the world, I was talking with Dina from San Francisco State earlier. She works in the broadcast department.
Dina?
Yep. And we were talking about how, one of the kind of saving graces of cable and broadcast is live sports. That's something that is kind of stands outside of the benefits of things like Netflix and on-demand viewing.
Yeah.
So this seems like it even accelerates or boosts the value of that differentiator.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, this concept of time, space, and matter is really a unique thing. When I was more working in doing events, if you look at time, like at axes, XYZ axes, where time is on one axis, which is like linear time, and space is real, and matter is atoms, that was kind of the whole space that we played in. So you would come to an arena, the event would happen from here to here, it would happen in the real space, there'd be like real atoms, like you'd sit in chairs and you'd feel it. Now when you start to think of the other side of that, which is no time, no space, and no space meaning virtual, and no matter meaning bits, you all of a sudden now have a unique collection of different, in a sense, universes that you can experience things in. So virtual for us, this virtual reality, especially in sports, still follows the linear time. So it would be that it happens at this place, this time to this time, but there would be no space and no matter. And then once you start to understand that, then you can start to capitalize around that opportunity. So definitely it's still linear, and that's one of the unique things about sports. In fact, it was funny because when we win, funny kind of in a black comedy way, when we won, every time we win a game during the finals, we shoot fireworks off Oracle. And you can see those, especially like from the Oakland Hills or whatever. So we had someone who was about a half hour to 45 minutes late to the start, went home to watch the game, was around third quarter, and then heard fireworks, right? Then it's over, right? Because we won. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's just,
no spoiler.
Might as well just turn off, right,
Yeah.
at that point. So,
let's go back to kind of what it's doing for the team and the growth of the team. You mentioned, of course, like the majority, if you pan back, of fans can't go to games or don't go to games, and especially overseas. So the business case of bringing the experience to them is pretty clear. But also, we were talking on the phone last week, and we realized that it's also yet another level to the slogan, strength in numbers, which of course is its foundation in the depth of the bench and the presence of the fans at home games, and there's a lot of levels to that motto. This is yet another one in that it's increasing the size of Warriors Nation to places where they can't otherwise access it. So talk about that kind of concept.
yeah, I mean, strength in numbers, which came out of one comment that Steve Kerr had made when he first came, and that really resonated with me and with the team, was this concept that it really does take a village. It's not just one person. It's not just a couple people. It's not just what happens on the court. It's the front office. It's the fans. It's the spirit, right? And it's become very much more of a kind of a ethos than a marketing strategy, which is why we decided to keep it and probably will for a while. So part of that is that every fan is part of this. Every fan helps to create this strength in numbers, whether you are creating Warriors ground at home or you're creating Warriors ground at a watch party, whether you're buying our brand to wear and walk around and support us, whether you're new, whether you're old. So the opportunity for us to extend that, to extend the experience of watching the game, which is still the paramount place where everything comes together, is at that game. And again, 17,586 people are the only amount of people that are going to be able to see that game every single day. And when you look at the amount of fans we have more fans in the Philippines on Facebook than we have in the U.S., right? Yeah, right. Go Philippines. And then same thing with China through Weibo and all those accounts. So the opportunity to really allow people to experience what happens on that court and actually feel like they are there helps us to extend strength in numbers. It allows us to bring it to life.
And then back to the business case too, what you're talking about applies when we're talking about really inventory constraints, whether the inventory means the amount of seats in the stadium, the amount of advertising inventory in a broadcast, and they sell out for big games.
Yeah.
So to be able to just have that auxiliary viewing channel for more, targeted and hopefully native and immersive types of ad experiences too, and then just more experiences. It's not just what you can fit in one broadcast, one stadium.
Well, that's the thing. Like this ribbon right here. So we don't have a whole lot of places to advertise in Oracle. Some of the arenas have two ribbon strips, but this is primarily where you'll see a lot of our ads. You'll see them here and on the center hung on the Jumbotron. But right now, every single minute during game time is filled, right? I mean, it's a physical amount of time that we can sell ads for. In a virtual space or an augmented space, all of a sudden that scarce resource becomes a lot more plentiful. I mean, if this is kind of where I think if down the road, if we were to be able to recreate this Oracle Arena, right? Let's just say we recreate Oracle Arena in the virtual space. So it's an actual physical place that we're recreating. Those who have been there, when they put on the headset and they see, will feel very comfortable because they've been there. It's an actual space. If you were to actually then add on to that an imaginary space, maybe that becomes an additional concourse where you could walk out of. So let's say you're walking in this concourse, you make a left, you come down one of these tunnels, and all of a sudden you have the next VR stream that's streaming the game. So you're experiencing the game. Then you could turn around, you could go back out, you could walk into the concourse, and you potentially could see, you could buy merchandise, you could potentially buy food, but you could also experience ads in the concourse that were relevant to you. You could then actually move through, let's say, that ring to another augmented ring, so we create almost a virtual tunnel that could take you to another arena, for example. And once you're in that other arena, you might also be there with Cavalier fans, right, who are experiencing this through VR. But their experience would be that they would be seeing ads that were relevant to them. The experience of a Warriors fan would be seeing things that would be relevant to them as a Warriors fan. So the opportunity to kind of create spaces on spaces using the combination of virtual reality and augmented reality takes on a whole new level when you think of it as much bigger than just, okay, we're just going to stream a game. I think eventually down the road we'll start looking, and a lot of that is possible right now. We just haven't stepped into that. If you look at using game engines like
Unity,
like Unreal by Epic, you can create these spaces and you can move people into. You have to start thinking about what it means to be present or not, but move people around in virtual spaces and still have it anchored in something they're familiar with.
it kind of almost takes the away parties you guys do to another level. I mean, it could be at their home arena watching.
True. I thought about that.
Yeah.
And we do have watch parties if anyone wants to come, because $20 watch party.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to one of
away
those.
games. So.
Now,
Same prices of beer.
Good one, Shell.
Thank you, Shell.
So, we talked about the center court vantage point, and I think, basketball, because of the layout, is one of those sports where it is a demonstrably better experience if you're front row, as opposed to, say, something like football, and I think it makes this experience work there. So what other sports do you think this is conducive to? I picture hockey. It's going to be awesome in hockey. Maybe tennis.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, so let me first talk about sound. So
Yeah.
sound is so critical to an experience. So if you go see a play, pretty much anywhere you sit in a theater, you can hear what happens on stage, right? I mean, let's hope. I mean, that's the design. In a basketball game, for example, you do not hear the sounds of the court once you're like 4 rows back, right? You don't hear the squeaking of the shoes, the banter of the players, or or the net. Although we do try to mic that up. So the experience is very different. Some would say it's not as great, but we've all gotten used to that. So we've actually done tests in the arena where we've mic'd up the court and delivered that sound to fans up way at the top, and it's been pretty incredible. But the opportunity in VR to be able to take that sound and deliver that so that not only do you have the view from the court, but you are actually having all the sounds from the court. Now, we might be able to recreate that, and that's what we're hoping to do in the new arena, but to be able to have that, to hear the banter between the players, I mean, unless you're sitting on the court, you are not hearing any of that. Or the things the ref really says, or all of that. If you can bring that to VR, it will enhance that viewing experience, and that will change depending upon where the camera is, ideally. So to answer your question, though, I think absolutely hockey. So we have actually, both in sound and VR. So we've already talked to definitely hockey's without a doubt. I hadn't thought about tennis, but I think tennis would be really great. But the thing is that since you are recreating a fan experience, any sport that, I mean, I've seen it in NASCAR, right? NASCAR, they've done some unbelievable VR watching NASCAR. Wimbledon is thinking about doing it. So I think that any sport that's a spectator sport where you're actually going to pay money to come sit, it already qualifies as something that would also benefit in being delivered through VR.
Nice. So we're kind of winding down here. I want to signal the audience you're going to have the chance to ask questions to Kenny, but also I'm going to call up Kevin and Mershad back up, and Nathan, if you want to join, and we're going to have kind of a closing little panel discussion and take some of your questions. But before we do that, just to kind of close, for a lot of the kind of future visions you talked about and where this can go, what's kind of missing, do you believe, from the ecosystem, whether it be technologically or politically or any other thing? And the reason I ask you that is for any of the folks in this room that are looking for detecting where there are gaps and opportunities in the market.
Well, so before I answer that, let me just say that one of the I'm just going to mention the players too, because we are unique in that, I think, in that our players are very tech savvy, and they're very interested in VR.
Iguodala is a very smart guy, and he's into tech, isn't he?
Andre he's a sharp guy, and he's very interested in anything tech. Harrison Barnes did an internship down at Facebook. Steph, of course, is excited about anything tech, and yeah, and then it really festers all the other players. So the advantage for us as a franchise to have our players and potentially our coaches interested in doing this. We've done some unique things behind the scenes, things that you wouldn't normally do. You just would not get that kind of access, because remember, we're trying to create a sensorial kind of emotional experience, and most of our fans would not only love to see what happens on the court, but would love to be taken into the locker room, right? Would love to see seeing what coach says when we're down by 20 at halftime, right? Or whatever. So the advantage that we have, one of the big advantages that isn't something that can be solved with tech, is just an entire appreciation that comes from our ownership all the way down to our players. I mean, one of the reasons Andre came to us was that he wanted to be in the tech space.
Yeah.
He also came to us because the fans were so loud when he played against us. He wanted to come.
He was in Denver before that, right?
Yeah. I think right now, we're not. I don't know about any specific gaps. I mean, I think the gaps are presented when unique opportunities come up, and this is just what we've done with NextVR has been phenomenal, right? And it's live streaming, but there's a lot of other storytelling components, narrative opportunities, multi-view, directional, fan-related places that we can go to help tell the warrior story, or to help demonstrate what strength in numbers really means at an emotional level. And that may be out in the community, that may be we do a lot of stuff in the community, that may be through our foundation, that may be actually what happens to Make-A-Wish before we get on the court. So I think that we're looking at broad. It's not just about streaming, although we're very interested in that. It's about any ways that we can really enhance our storytelling using VR or AR.
So we're about out of time, but I'm gonna pass it over to Mershad for any kind of final housekeeping notes. And we can stay longer, please. You know, we have beer and pizza left. Any other words you want to add?
No, thank you for coming out. Really appreciate you guys.
Watch party.
And join me in thanking all the speakers.